Hello, everybody. My name is Ratnos, and today we have several big pieces of news about 12.05 and 12.07 that have accumulated over the past couple of days that I wanted to make a video about. So first off is the newest and probably smallest piece of news in this. Haters would say I shouldn't sequence this first in the video, but also it's the tab I had open. So this one is bonus rolls with the Voidforge in your Great Vault using the pity currency next patch. So just in case you're not caught up with what the bonus rolls look like, which comes out next week, right? 12.05 is next week. If you've been building your Voidforge every week, if you haven't, you can catch up now and catch up to like 5 out of 6 on that quest already. And then next week it'll be faster. Even if you haven't done any of that, it's okay. But yeah, little PSA, go talk to the guy. It's one of those like purple exclamation point quests that is it's right where you take the portal into the Voidstorm. So it's in that little hub. Make sure that you have that. You've been building that up if you want to make use of these bonus rolls. But the way it's going to work is sort of like previous times there's been bonus rolls, which is several expansions since we've had a system like this. You can buy a certain amount per week with several different resources, right? Gold, Voidlight Marl, or Veteran Dawn Crests. So don't upconvert all your Veteran Dawn Crests. You can use them to buy these nebulous Voidcores. And you can get 2 of these per week, but you can also get a third if you use 6 of the tokens of merit. And this is the new piece of information, which is actually a pretty big deal, because if you think about it, right, any one of these nebulous void cores, you can use it in a Mythic Plus dungeon and get an item out of it at the end of it. Now, the way that this works is that it's going to, if you do this in a plus 10 key, this will be Myth 1 loot, right? It'll be the same as the Great Vault rewards from that eye level. And it will basically go through the full list of loot that's you're eligible for, and it can only give you things on it once each, right? Before you've run through the whole thing. So if, say, you want a puzzle box, and your spec has 6 items on the loot table from Algathar Academy, if your vault doesn't have anything great, you just take one of these tokens of merit, you get 3 tries at it that week. And then if you don't hit that week, next week you do the same thing, and you get your other 3 tries, and you're guaranteed to see your puzzle box by the end of that. And in fact, if you're lucky, you'll get it that first week even. If you're very lucky, you'll get it and still have 2 Void Cores to spare. So this is very powerful for people that are looking for a Mythic Plus trinket in particular. If you're looking for, I guess really anything from Mythic Plus. If you're looking for raid items, on the other hand, raid items actually cost you 2 of these nebulous Void Cores to roll for. So the raid items are better. They're more crest value as well, right? If you're able to be killing Myth 2, really Myth 3 or higher bosses, because Myth 2 is the same as Hero 6, right? So that's just extra hero crests to go from Myth 1 to Myth 2. But yeah, if you were able to be farming bosses like Crown of the Cosmos or beyond, you probably want to be using your Void Cores on Crown of the Cosmos or Lura, right? Like one of those really high level bosses that have really powerful, very rare items, those kind of things. Hunting down if you're somebody who is killing Mythic Crown of the Cosmos, but not Mythic Lura, probably coin Crown of the Cosmos. And if you're killing Mythic Lura, I mean, obviously you've already won the patch, but that is probably the place to spend it. But I think almost everybody else, even if you are killing, Mythic Dragons, Mythic Light Blinded Vanguard, you should probably be bonus rolling Mythic Plus for like whichever dungeon has Abyss Trinket for you. Maybe Nexus Point Zenith, which has that 2 ring combo that you could get both of those on the Myth track. Be very happy with that. So that's my initial kind of quick. But yeah, basically the other thing this means is as long as you are coining M+, if your vault doesn't have any good items, taking these tokens of merit now, as long as you've got 3 vault slots, right, so you get the full 6 tokens of merit, is basically like a random, it's better than a random item, right? It's like, because of that bad luck protection, it's 1 closer to your puzzle box, right? It's 1 closer to your ring 2 set from Zenith. Whatever you're spending your bonus rolls on in M+, this is basically, you're getting a full item out of your vault if you have to take the pity tokens, and it's basically deterministic, right? It's just, you will get the item eventually, just a question of whether it takes you 1, 2, 3 weeks, 7 weeks if you're trying to get something from Seed of the Triumvirate, because that dungeon has a million items on its loot table. And then, yeah, later in the patch, by the way, this is not right away, but further down the line, we will be able to then upgrade the eye level of our pieces further. But this isn't actually coming out right away. This is after the Voidforge is constructed. Then we build the next thing, so it's all very flavorful. All right, up next, let's talk about Keystone Myth and Umbral Champion. So this is a new set of achievements coming in 12.05 for people pushing high-end M+. Keystone Myth is 3,400 rating, which is roughly all 16s timed. You could probably do it with 6 16s and 2 15s if you're beating the timer by a good amount, that kind of thing. But all 16s, I think, is a good mental shortcut for this. And it gives you a choice of mount, including Keystone Legend and Keystone Master mounts. Now, the exact list here is not known for sure. But yeah, it's a curated selection of these that include Keystone Master and Keystone Legend mounts from previous seasons, as well as all new mounts being added to the pool. So pretty cool, sort of similar to the Vicious Saddle system that PvP has, but it's 3,400 M+ rating, whereas PvP, way lower rating numbers you needed there, which just goes to prove that M+ is way more hardcore and difficult than PvP, right? 3,400 in M+, only 2,400 to get the top rewards in PvP, if you think about it. And then there's also Umbral Champion. So Umbral Champion is going to be top 1% at the end of the season. Now, there's, of course, already the hero. It'll be Umbral Hero this season, which is top 0.1%. So this is 10 times more players that will get Umbral Champion. And that one also comes with a new exclusive mount as well. So this is some really, I think, really good new top rungs of the ladder for Mythic Plus. It's actually not the highest rung, right? The highest rung has already existed, which is 0.1%, the hero titles, right? But previously what we had is you have all this good gear progression, and you have, Keystone Explorer, Keystone Master, Keystone Hero even, right? Which is like a little bit above that, but you have all this stuff sort of in the time all the 6s, timing 10s for loot, time all the 12s, right? Start getting resilient keys, get Keystone Hero. And then it was like, okay, time all the 12s, and then if you time all the 19s, you get Keystone, you get the seasonal hero title, right? And there was sort of nothing between time all the 12s and time all the 19s, and there was this huge good set of rewards below time all the 12s that, of course, a lot of that was gear, right? But they don't want to have gear changing. They don't want to be giving us Myth 4 items from plus 18 keys, although they did flirt with that briefly in beta, but I think there are good reasons why they don't want to do that. But now we have, I think, really compelling, like, cosmetic title mount reasons to go for, you've got all the 16s for Keystone Myth. This is going to be really cool thing to go for. And then Umbral Champion, I suspect, is probably going to be something like, I actually don't know the numbers this season, because I think last season it would have been like 18s, but anytime, so there's this Wowhead post here that includes some charts that I think are from Radar.io. From this looks like Jordan graph things, although not 100% sure. Yeah. Anyways, anytime you're looking at this sort of data, you have to be a little bit careful, because if you're trying to sort of backfit how high a title cutoff would have been in a season where that title cutoff didn't exist, people's behavior changes based on the reward that's there, right? So because there was a 0.1% title, we saw the competition for 0.1% go up once that got added. I think the same is likely to happen for the top 1% title as well. So here's some breakpoints, right, of the last couple of seasons. So in War Within, for instance, the 0.1% title was 3.9k in Season 3, and the 1% would have been 3.5k. Now, I suspect that had a title for 1% existed, this number would have been higher. I think it probably would have been 3.6, 3.7, something like that, in order to get that, in a world where there was a champion title that season here in NA. So I don't know for sure, but I suspect, you're probably looking at being, I would say, a key level or maybe a key level and a half below the 0.1% title, but probably not much lower than that. And I think it will be substantially higher than the Keystone Myth title at timing all the 16s. But I think this is really good. Basically, I'm a big fan of M+ having a nice long ladder of rewards. I think they did a lot of great work of putting some more cool stuff in for the low end keys. They've been doing a lot of good work there. In fact, Lindormi's Guidance, the new affix they put in for +2 to +4 keys, where it highlights mobs, makes you do more damage to them. They're sort of expanding that up into higher keys as well if you want, where it can highlight the mobs there. That was sort of unfortunate though, because that also overlapped with the season where they made +2 to +4 keys so easy that they were being skipped by more players than ever. So I think people missed out on seeing a system where, you know, if you were farming +7 keys, I think there were a lot of tanks that would have benefited from that this season. So I think it's good they're kind of expanding that further. And yeah, they've made the gear more accessible than ever this season with the relatively forgiving scaling of M+, right? I think it's very clear that this season, for any given key level, it's much easier than it was in War Within at that key level, you know, doing a +10. People are 3-chesting +10s with wipes, right? In the first few weeks of the season, which you go back to War Within Season 1, for instance, and a wipe meant you depleted a +10 in a lot of cases. So very different texture for that. And I do think, yeah, having the lower level keys be a little bit more forgiving, more of a sort of stable introduction to M+ is good. And then I think having it be that there's like always an accessible next step on the ladder that you can try and climb up to, right? Getting to Keystone Hero, then getting to Keystone Myth, then getting to Umbral Champion, then getting to Keystone Legend or whatever it is, the highest rank Umbral Hero. I think that is a really good way to sort of ease people into becoming M+ pushers if they want to, which a lot of people want to. You know, a lot of people would say, don't do that. It's that's bad. But other people enjoy M+, enjoy doing some key push. So yeah, I think this is going to be really good. Okay, another big thing here that sort of feels similar to adding some more good rewards for M+, in that this is something that has been discussed and requested a lot, is Flex Raid Mythic coming with Sporefall. So Sporefall is a one-boss raid that is coming out in patch 12.0.7, and it's going to have a Mythic Flex difficulty. This was in this full interview with Max and Scott, I think, from Liquid, and one of the encounter designers and another designer from Blizzard. And you can watch the full VOD, of course, but here's the quotation, right? "We do aim to make this raid more approachable. One of the pieces of feedback we've heard a lot from Mythic players in particular and Heroic players is that it is very difficult to make that transition from Heroic to Mythic. This is going to be one boss raid in Herondar called Sporefall, and we're excited for the first time. We're going to be offering Mythic Flex difficulty. So you'll be able to enter into Mythic with groups of 15 to 25 players. So we hope that will allow more groups who've maybe completed AOTC or their Heroic goals to transition into Mythic. So that's really our goal with this piece of content, is to make sure that if you finish the season in your Heroic group, you feel like you can start to bite off a bigger challenge for your group and think about a long-term road of transitioning into Mythic difficulty." So I do think this is really cool to try. Blizzard has talked about the reasons for not doing this in the past, which is, you know, this is something that, of course, a lot of people have been requesting for a long time, either flex difficulty or like 10-player sizing. You know, a lot of people complain about the logistical challenge of getting 20 people together. Not only that, but the challenges of benching players, right? If you're trying to do a 20-player content, if you have exactly 20 people in your guild and one person can't show up, you're toast. So every guild runs more than 20 players, but then that means you have to bench players. And benching players sucks, right? It absolutely sucks to be on the bench, especially with the current Mythic raid design. It's very often true that the entire difficulty of the tier is loaded into, you know, a very small set of bosses. So being on the bench for one or multiple of those is just a huge lack of progression that you get to do that tier. At least that's how it's felt at my guild recently. Is we have like, you know, often tiers feel like they're one or two boss tiers, and if you miss those, then that really, really sucks. But of course, if there's Mythic Flex difficulty, then that's fixed, right? Now you can have exactly 20 people and play them all. You can have 23 people and always play them all. You can have 18 people, right? You can have 15 people. Any of those numbers all work. If somebody has to show up or can't show up, right? If somebody is out for a night, you just play 19, it's fine, right? Any of those things would be fine. Now, the challenges with this is that scaling the difficulty to correctly update for a player getting added or removed is really hard. If you think about Heroic Crown of the Cosmos, for instance, when that boss launched, it was dramatically easier at 10 players than 30. Like, I don't know what percentage easier, but it was probably something like 30% easier on 10 player versus 30 player. Now, they've done some nerfs to the 30 player sizing, like scaling numbers there, but it is very hard to imagine a boss where that stays within a very tight band, right? Like, even if you imagine it getting 5% easier from one number to another, right? Something like on Lura, the number of midnight crystals that spawn is set to 6 on the first 2 spawn sets, right? If you only have 15 players and there's still 6, that's going to be really hard, right? Now you've got 15 players and 2 of them have to be Death Knights. That's a pretty big restriction, right? But on the other hand, if you make it so that it goes from 6 to 5 when you go from 20 to 19 players, now we have a difficulty breakpoint, right? And none of this is a big deal if the boss isn't supposed to push us to our limits, right? When you think about Mythic end bosses, that would be a huge problem, right? If they tried to do flex sizing for Mythic Lura, right? For Mythic Dimensius, any of those sorts of fights, you would look at the numbers of targets that people that affect us at different sizes. We would probably want to play the smallest group size we could for coordination being easier. And then we would want to basically look for favorable breakpoints, right? Where it's like, okay, going from 16 to 17 players adds an extra soak here, but going from 15 to 16 doesn't. And 15 to 16 gives us a better ratio of healers to DPS, right? Let's do that, right? Let's do 16 for this boss. Let's do 18 for this boss, right? That's the sort of thing you would do if you were doing really hardcore Mythic progression on a boss with flex difficulty scaling. Now, on the other hand, if it's just easy bosses, right? If it's just bosses up to probably like Light Blinded Vanguard level difficulty this tier, maybe Dragon's difficulty, certainly Chimeras, right? If Chimeras had this system from the start, I think it's very hard to imagine that there would be any big problems with that, because that boss isn't designed to have a difficulty tightly aimed such that it's like right at our level of capabilities, right? Because if you aim difficulty just at the level of what people can do, and then you let that difficulty fluctuate based on adding or subtracting players, right? Then invariably, what's a guild going to do, right? Like, oh, we need to optimize another 5% damage. We need to optimize this mechanic better, or we can drop a player we can hit this specific number of players to do this. So all that's to say, like, this is really cool. It's really cool they're trying this once. If their goal is just to do this once to get some, AOTC guilds to think about becoming Mythic guilds, then I could see that having some merit. On the other hand, you're not really helping transition people into Mythic. If there's a guild that's out there that's like, yeah, we want to do Mythic, but we want to play with 18 people, or we want to play without having to bench people. And you're like, okay, well, here's a raid where you don't have to do that. And then you never do it again. It's like, okay, well, they're just not going to do Mythic again when that changes again, right? So if, on the other hand, you're trying to figure out how to carry this forward and do this always with Mythic, you haven't answered the question of like, what do you do about the actual hard fights, right? What are you going to do to make that work? Now, there are ways that you could think of doing this, right? You could think of maybe making it so that this is true of Mythic, or like this tier of Mythic Chimeras, Aversian, Veracius, Salhadar, maybe even Dragons had launched like this. And then a couple weeks down the line, that gets added to include Light Blinded Vanguard. And then a couple of weeks after that, that Crown of the Cosmos gets added. And then a couple of weeks after that, Bellerin. And then a couple of weeks after that, Lura get added to go from 20 to 15 to 25. Maybe it's like after the Hall of Fame closes, Mythic Flex opens up for that end boss. And before then, it's just like the first part of the raid. And, the penultimate boss gets there after, 50 guilds have killed the end boss or whatever on the Hall of Fame, some kind of numbers like that, right? Like you come up with some structure like that. That could be a way of doing it. If we did enter that world, by the way, the Race World first, but also really high-end guilds would be doing 25 players on all the easy bosses to get more loot and then funneling that onto more players. But I think that's fine. I think that even that is like, benched players would get to play bosses that they currently don't on those. So, I think that upside would be real. But yeah, I guess basically my idea, my thing with this is like, this seems cool. It seems like they're probably doing this to gauge feedback, to gauge the reaction. But it strikes me as one of those things where if the reaction is overwhelmingly positive, what's the plan to do it again, right? What's the plan to, like, what are the pathways to actually doing this more often? I guess you could just do this with like a one boss raid every other tier, and try and use that to get guilds to go from AOTC guilds to Mythic progression guilds. But like, again, I think that the guilds that are going to benefit from this are benefiting not because they're getting to do Mythic, but because they're getting to do Mythic with a group of 15 to 25 players. And once that characteristic is gone again, you know, how many of them are going to stay in Mythic? Maybe there will be some people that get the itch for it. Again, depends on how cool the Sporefall boss is, what the difficulty they're aiming for there. I suspect, again, it'll probably be pitched quite low correctly. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think about this one in particular, because so for me personally, I guess the main thing I'd want to preserve is, as long as we get an end boss that's really hard to progress, that's the main thing that I enjoy doing, right? It's like progressing really hard bosses. Hopefully more than just an end boss, but at least having like a really hard Mythic end boss. And as long as that's preserved, I'm very happy with the idea of opening up Mythic Flex in some way to more, you know, to get more people able to play Mythic, to avoid those bench problems. But yeah, I'm excited they're experimenting with this, but I'm skeptical that they've solved the actual hard problems with doing this for Mythic difficulty. So yeah, we'll see. Again, a lot of this is something that, you know, if they had tried harder, could they have balanced Crown of the Cosmos Heroic to work for all group sizes better? Yeah, it's definitely possible. But it is a lot of work, right? There's a lot of work to bite off if you're going to try and do this for even moderately hard, but especially very hard Mythic bosses. Having that be tuned such that there isn't a heavy incentive to go to a specific number of players is just really, really hard. That's it for this video. Hope you've enjoyed. Let me know what you think about all this stuff. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.